Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Jamal Cunningham from Public Education, and today I'm here with Dr. Rachel Reinders. Rachel, you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I am an assistant professor at Alverno College, and I'm also a licensed psychologist here in Wisconsin.
Yeah. And today we're going to talk about microaggressions. And the microaggressions is a term that a lot of people talk about and they use, but I guess in our discussion, maybe we can start off with just saying what is a microaggression, and just to create common language for everybody that's watching.
Yeah, so I tend to use the definition that Daryl Wing Sue used, and so he's a psychologist that's done a lot of work about microaggressions. And so his definition is brief, everyday exchanges that send denigrating messages to certain individuals because of their group membership. So that's kind of like the formal definition. Mm-hmm. But really, to me, the primary thing about microaggressions is that they are unintentional, usually unconscious, possibly even well-intentioned. That it's not an actual attempt to hurt somebody. Mm-hmm. That when we're talking about microaggressions, that's not what we're talking about. We have different terms for when somebody actually wants to hurt somebody. Yeah. And so these microaggressions are these things that people really often don't even know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. And so why is it important that, as psychologists and mental health providers, why is it important that we talk about this, about microaggressions?
Because even though people don't know that they're doing harm, they're still doing harm. Mm-hmm. So we often are going to see this in terms of clients coming in being harmed by it and wanting to process this. And as psychologists, if we are not aware of this, we are running the risk of like invalidating people and saying like, no, you're just interpreting it wrong. They didn't mean it. Mm-hmm. And so just that saying that they didn't mean it gets brought up a lot. And like as a society, we're so focused on what people mean to do, right? It's like codified in our laws even that there's different charges for somebody like means to hurt somebody versus accidentally hurt somebody, which is all fine, but the person still ended up hurt.
Yeah. And
the person still needs to like receive care and treatment.
Yeah.
And the person who did the hurt is still responsible for it, whether they meant to do it or not. And so this is something that I'm also a parent. And so this is the thing that comes up for me when I'm parenting as well. So just the other day, like my kids were playing and one of them accidentally was like jumping around and they kicked the other one. And I found myself saying to the one that got kicked, like, oh, it's okay. They didn't mean it. It was just an accident. And then I'm like, but like that doesn't make it hurt any less, and it doesn't make the one that was doing the hurting less responsible for it. Like they still need to get themselves under control and take responsibility for it. And so the same thing applies to words.
I think it's a really good point, 'cause like people don't tend to think about, regardless of the intention, there's still pain there, and even if you didn't intend to hurt someone a certain way, doesn't mean that the pain is less valid or less significant.
Right. And it doesn't make you an awful person.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, just because you didn't know that what you were saying was going to do something, that doesn't make you awful. It doesn't make you mean. It doesn't like mean any of these things that we tend to take it to mean when people call us out on things. Yeah. But it does mean that it happened.
Yeah. And I wonder, because hearing you saying that makes me wonder if there's a sense of guilt that plays into that. I hurt someone intentionally. I feel guilty. I didn't do that,
Yeah, exactly. We don't want, especially when it's something that's like well-intentioned. Like the examples that get brought up all the time are like compliments that actually end up hurting people. Like calling somebody well-spoken, or asking if you can touch their hair because it's just so beautiful. So like those things are people that they're like, but I was appreciating them. I'm giving them a compliment. But like not recognizing the like messages that it's triggering in that other person.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of other areas that we've kind of normalized this, right? So when we talk about trauma, we talk about triggers. And the person that's triggering somebody doesn't necessarily always know that they're doing it. They don't always like mean to do it, but they still like can take responsibility for that and try to stop doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right that it does come back to a lot of guilt. And with guilt comes like responsibility to do something about it, and it's a lot of work to actually do something about it. So if we can just say like, oh no, it's okay, just get over it, then we don't have to actually do anything.
Yeah, like I want to fix it,
Right.
Yeah. And you brought up wellness, and that it made me think about how even as providers, mental health workers, we can make a say a microaggression to someone we're working with, and I would imagine it's important for us to be aware of microaggression just in case we do it in our own work and impact the people that we're trying to serve.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. Like we've talked before, like I was saying, that we're going to be dealing with people who have been like microaggressed against, but you're right that we are almost certainly going to microaggress against clients.
Yeah. And when you're thinking about how clients or just people in general, how are they impacted psychologically by being the receiving end of a microaggression?
So that always makes me think of just like the general feeling of being othered. That like often people who experience microaggressions talk about just like being reminded of their like other status and kind of just being reminded like you're not one of us.
A lot of times people think about microaggression, think about race, but there's other factors that play into it. There's gender, there's age, there's a host of other things that someone can perpetuate a microaggression towards.
Yeah, like disability status, sexual orientation. There's lots of different types of identities that somebody can be microaggressed like for having.
When thinking about people who are perpetrating, microaggressions, what does that kind of reflect within them?
So I feel like when I was thinking about this question, I felt like the only thing that you could really attribute on a broad basis is a lack of awareness. Like it just really means that they don't realize the impact of their words. And so again, like I can never be fully aware of how my words are going to impact other people. One of the sayings that I have like on my office door and that I really try to live by is the saying like impact, not intent. So that's focusing on like what I meant to say or what I meant to do doesn't matter as much as what I actually did, what the impact of my behavior was. And so I, as a teacher, as an instructor, I see this come up a lot, that I will spend a lot of time trying to be really, really clear about an assignment or about like a discussion question. And then, so my intention is to be really, really, really clear. And then students will come back to me and say like, this is really confusing. And so it's really not on me to say to them like, no, you're wrong. This is very clear. Because it comes back to that impact, not intent thing. And so when I think about that, that's not a microaggression, but it is an example of like just a lack of awareness of how other people are going to perceive things. And so I don't think that there's any the generalizations that can be made about people who microaggress others other than that they just don't know.